All right, what is an appraisal and what has changed due to COVID-19? What's going on, everybody? Jeff Bonk here from Homes by Bonk, and today I have a repeat star, Terry Darling. He's here wearing a different hat today. We had him a few weeks back. Terry's an amazing inspector in the area, but he also does appraisals. He's a licensed appraiser, so we've been on some deals before where he's been hired by the bank to come in and do an appraisal. And real quick, for first-time home buyers, I'll just give the 2-second overview. An appraiser and an appraisal process is kind of dictated by the bank. The mortgage company and the loan officer hires a third-party appraiser to go in and make sure the property values at what the bank is lending on. And that's where Terry comes in. He goes into the property, typically does a report and kind of advises the bank and secures the bank so they know they're loaning the amount of money for the property that's worth that. So, Terry, thanks for being with us today. I want to kick that to you as well. If you want to just go ahead and say hi, and we can get rolling from there.
Sure, Jeff. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me back on to talk about appraisals and valuations too, because there's a lot of questions throughout the housing industry right now, and certainly that's one of them. What's going to happen with values? How do you have a safe appraisal done right now? Some people are looking at drive-by appraisals, things like that. So, but as far as what an appraisal is, you really summed it up well there. For lending purposes, which most of your audience, that's what they're going to be most interested in. A lending appraisal is ordered by a bank or a lender, where they engage an appraiser to provide an estimate of market value. Is our audio okay?
Yeah, I think we're okay. I'm in a little crackling there.
I lost it. All right. So I'm going to keep going. You give me the sign if you're not.
Sure.
Okay, good. So an appraisal really is a product that sort of looks backwards in time, because you're really looking at market value based on sales that have already taken place.
Right.
And not that we don't consider listings and pendings. We certainly do. You wouldn't pay more for a similar property if you could buy the one next door for less if it's on the market. So, what you're competing with is important, obviously, but your closed sales that you really rely on to reconcile value have happened in the past. And we're in a very interesting time now because things have changed so dramatically because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So when a buyer, is looking in this market to make a purchase, usually an appraisal is done with an interior inspection, because not only does a lender want to know value, but they also want a detailed report about the condition of the home. If there are any, necessary repairs or things like that, and also the layout, a sketch of the layout with a sketch diagram showing the size of the home, things like that. Are all part of the appraisal, typically.
Sorry, the volume's a little light. I don't know if it's maybe the other earpiece.
Yeah, maybe pick it up.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
So, one of the things that has changed, is more difficult now, is to negotiate an inspection, right? A walkthrough of the home. We're all told to stay home and only travel essentially. So, the last thing people want these days is somebody, walking through their home. So, what that's done is it's pushed the appraisal business in a couple of different directions. One is the possibility of a drive-by appraisal, or an exterior-only appraisal exists for some borrowers based on some products. And then those that we do need to do a full walk-in appraisal with, we try to implement a safety procedure to keep the homeowner safe, the real estate professional safe, and ourselves safe as appraisers, and also the next person we're going to see. We're in multiple properties a week, so it's really important that we're safe and we don't carry anything from one place to another. So, we wear disposable gloves. We change them after every appraisal. We always wear indoor-only shoes that we clean between each one too, so they're not carrying anything between apartments or between homes. And then we're asking people to, open all the windows, open all the doors, which limits the surfaces that we have to touch, and really kind of protects the occupants as well as the appraiser.
Right.
And then also to just step outside, like give us a few minutes there. We'll go through with the real estate professional only, or maybe the homeowner only, but there doesn't need to be multiple people in the building at the same time for safety reasons.
Right.
So those are kind of some of the changes. But then some lenders are moving towards drive-bys or an exterior only appraisal.
So can you talk a little more about that? Like how accurate can that be? If I'm buying a property and I'm paying $500,000 or more or less, how comfortable can I be that if an appraiser is not getting into the unit, that I feel comfortable that I'm buying it for the right price and the bank is well informed on the loan they're giving me? Is that how accurate can they be?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's on the minds of a lot of people right now. I mean, a home purchase is the biggest investment you're ever going to make, right? So you want to make sure that you have an appraisal that's credible and trusted. The scope of work really has to be determined by the individual appraiser, and it's on them to determine if there's enough data available to provide a credible result based on an exterior only appraisal. So what does that mean? A couple of different things. Credible data might come from a prior MLS listing, might come from the current MLS listing. Usually you're taking data from a couple of different places to piece it together to be able to develop a credible exterior only appraisal. But most MLS listings now, you're providing photos of the inside, of the view, if that's important, of the garage or swimming pool, all those amenities that kind of drive value. And in markets like in Hudson County, square footage is usually pretty accurate. In Hoboken, Jersey City, square footage of condos in particular is usually pretty accurate, and most times you can rely on those. In most cases, I do rely on those as accurate to a degree anyway. So if you have that kind of information, you can certainly go forward and determine that an exterior only appraisal is something that you can provide a comfortable value with. One thing that's kind of changed over the last few weeks is that occupant or that real estate professional, that seller, are more willing to share information directly. So if I ask for, listen, I need a couple of extra photos, or, a lot of times, this like with a listing, you might show those 2 bathrooms that have been renovated, and maybe you're not putting that last bathroom photo in there because, it was renovated last in 1978. And you don't really want to highlight it on a listing.
Yeah.
So you ask for those things and say, listen, I need to see all those rooms. And people are a lot more willing to share that now because, this is a environment of cooperation these days, right? So with that kind of cooperation, in most cases, we're able to provide a credible, result with an exterior only appraisal. We still go by the outside of the property, you still make sure it's standing. And in the case of a single family or a detached building, that there's no deferred maintenance on the outside or no external, influence from something on the outside as well. So
if it's a larger building in Hoboken or Jersey City, is that kind of easier? You might have some more like not to say cookie cutter, but more common comps in the building where that line, you can look back on that line, you can look back on square footage in that building. The amenities are pretty easy to know what they're like. And maybe the more unique the property is, the more drive-by only is a little bit more difficult. Kind of that combined with cooperation of the current occupant is the two things that really are the big drivers, and if that's really easy. And I'm sorry about that noise that keeps happening. I closed down my text messages and it reopened and it won't close back down. And every group chat I'm in right now is like firing off, and I've been trying to close it down and I can't. So sorry for the distraction of that.
All good.
So yeah, those are the two biggest drivers with the drive-bys?
Yeah, absolutely. In the larger buildings, the larger condo buildings, especially, those are typically good candidates for a drive-by, for an exterior only, or even a desktop appraisal. When you get into larger buildings, more complicated ones, and also the multifamilies are difficult.
Okay.
On a multifamily, you're looking at the income approach to value in addition to the sales comparison approach. And traditionally, you don't do an exterior on a multifamily. Now, these days, some lenders might be making exceptions to that. But usually you don't, and it's because there is a lot of differences in condition, unit to unit, and also data's not as easy to come up with from tax records or even MLS data. So, so there are still challenges. You know, you work around it as best you can. Um, but
Okay.
overall, the exterior assignments, most of them that I've had have been, I feel like we've been credible on them, with extra work involved. So, so
With,
that is good.
with the multifamilies, do you guys take the rent roll or market rents into consideration a little bit? Does that help you in this scenario if you can't get into a property but you know what it rents for? Is that in the calculation, or is that something that's really not as much?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely part of the valuation process on a multifamily. And we always report what current rent is, and sometimes that makes people nervous because you've got a tenant that's been there a long time. Your current rent's below market, but I always tell owners, don't be nervous about market rent. That's something that has to be reported in the appraisal. But as far as value goes, excuse me, current rent, it has to be reported. But as far as value goes, market rent is what you rely on. So if you have something that's rented at $900, it should rent for 2,000 because it's your brother-in-law or it's a longtime tenant that's helped you take care of the property. You value it based on what the market is renting for. Now, the thing with multifamilies from a lender side is the risk is just higher, right? So it's part of the reason why they want to have eyeballs in those buildings. To know how well has this been maintained? Does it have any deferred maintenance? And if they're
Right,
going to make a lending decision on it, is it a solid building or does it need, you know, so many repairs to be, habitable,
for
which
sure.
makes it difficult, on the inspection side. So
Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Well, that definitely makes sense and is helpful. One of the last things I wanted to chat on, and you mentioned this to me yesterday, and we want to talk about it a little bit today because it might start coming up and hitting the news cycle and hitting the just options out there. Is it wise to defer an appraisal until after you close? And this is something I think is a newer option, maybe an option, may not be an option. People might start hearing about it, thinking it's an option, but it's really not. So, like, what's the story on that? What are you seeing? What are you hearing in that kind of that dialogue?
sure, yeah, it's an interesting topic that hasn't really ever been a possibility before, but there have been some publications about it lately, and there's a few caveats with it. Not every lending institution um, can offer an appraisal deferment. And basically, what it is you can close on a property or on a loan and then have the appraisal done up to 120 days after the closing. Um, you know, I understand the reason for it. You want business to continue. You want lending and home purchases and building purchases to continue through this. But there are some real questions with it. One being value. We talked about an appraisal is looking backwards right now. Every appraisal has an effective date, right? So if I come to the Bach House today and I do an appraisal on your home, it's based on April 21st. So what that means is anything that closes April 22nd or May 1st or later, I'm not using that as a comparable because it doesn't exist in that world of that appraisal because it has that one date that's effective. So you're always looking backwards. With this, you're basically doing a retrospective appraisal. You do an appraisal 2 months from now based on today's date. Um, Banks are in the business, to help banks. They usually help banks more than they help people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my questions about this would be, what if you buy something today for 500,000 and it appraises for 550, and you're okay,
Right,
and then 3 months from now, it appraises at 480.
right.
Does the bank want to be made whole by you?
That
I don't know.
the next question. Yeah, what happens if it under appraises and you've already closed and they've already funded the loan? Yeah, that's still to
It's Yeah, it's some big questions. Now, I'm not saying the values are going to tank. This is a completely different environment that we find ourselves in than we did in, say, 2008, right?
right.
In 2008, people were over leveraged, foreclosures were rampant, um, completely different than what we see now. Now, um, people we're not as over leveraged as we were then, um, but the job market is going to be completely different than it was then, too. So, you know, who knows where values are going to go, but based on how many job losses have been experienced and the potential, impact that has on housing, I don't think it's wise to bank on, your values going up significantly in the next 3 months to 6 months.
Right.
Um, it doesn't compute based on how many jobs we've lost, throughout the country and here in the Northeast. That doesn't mean real estate's not still a good investment. It absolutely is, and things are still moving. I mean, I've got to do another assignment today. I'm working on a purchase report, trying to get it out right now. Things are moving. People have to have somewhere to live, which is why real estate's always a sound investment.
Definitely. We're seeing activity as well. The volume's been down the last few weeks, last month or about 45 days. But transactions are still happening because people do need to move. We're doing deals and helping people find places and sell places for people that they have like situational based reasons for moving. It's not that I want to move, I'm not in the mood to move. It's not like a nice thing if I could move. It's like, oh, I have to move. I have a job changing. I have a house that's selling. I have a landlord that already found a new person for my place. I have to move. So we're seeing deals still come together and buyers and sellers still reach agreements. And I agree with you. I think we're not in 2008. I actually did a video last week with some slides saying, like, look at the fundamentals leading to 2008 and the fundamentals leading up to this. That said, we don't have crystal balls. Who knows how long do we get a resurgence of this? Does jobs come right back? Do they come slowly back? What does that look like? Those are all factors that we don't know. But what we do know is that going into this, the real estate market was strong, low inventory, lots of equity in homes, responsible lending, right? So all those things kind of at least gave us a good run in to this pause that we're seeing right now that is yet to be determined how we come out, but at least we went in well, in a healthy place. So that's we'll put our crystal balls away now and just stop trying to predict the future, right? So it'd be nice if we could do that. Everyone wants to know, where is it going? What's the future hold? It's like, here's the details, here's the facts, here's the stats, but anything could change day by day right now. So it's crazy stuff. But all right, awesome. We covered a lot of good stuff, Terry. Anything else that is pertinent that you think might be important right now just to talk about in the appraisal world?
I think it's just, if you're in that position where you need to have an appraisal done, or really any service person in your home, don't be afraid to ask questions to protect yourselves and, to protect the people coming in too. Most of the people that I have engaged with as far as, needing to be in their homes have been terrific. Some of the people might say that some of the safety procedures we put in place are too much, but I really haven't heard that from people. More of the opposite. People are happy that, you're willing to go that extra mile to, try to make sure that, they remain safe and healthy. And the public good is really at heart here. So, most people have been good that way. There's a feeling of cooperation, really, Jeff, like kind of throughout everything you do right now, not just business, and that's really nice to see, because, we got to look out for each other, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. So, if you need an appraisal done, be patient and, be prepared, and, be as safe as you can. So, and we got to keep going.
Well, I can't give you a plug on the appraisal side, right? Because that's third-party randomized picking by the bank. But thank you for coming on and explaining this without having something to promote for yourself. But I'll throw you a promotion. Check out the last video, Home Safe Inspections. Terry, you can pick your inspector for a real estate purchase. So if you need a good inspector, Terry is a very trusted vendor of ours, someone we work closely with. And also follow him on Facebook. He's doing a lot of great stuff in the Cranford area, that Westfield area that I know a lot of our clients move to. He's helping support local businesses, getting the words out, doing a lot of community content, letting you know who's open, who's not. I still don't live in that area, but I enjoy watching it. You do a lot of good stuff there, Terry. So appreciate you giving us the insight on appraisals, and thank you for everything else as well. And any parting words?
Just be safe, everybody. Be safe and wash your hands.
All right. Thanks, Terry. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff, very much.